Welcome to both a LinkedIn Live and streaming on YouTube for the first time. We'll see how that works out. To this fireside chat, hence the background about Dall-E and ChatGPT and generative artificial intelligence. I had another LinkedIn Live about this, but I wasn't able to walk through some of the features of ChatGPT, which a lot of people have done already and they played around with it and Dall-E. I just, I wanted to try a few examples just live and go through that subject again because it is getting a lot of airtime and coverage and so many articles about the implications of generative AI for art, for copyright, for creativity, for professions like myself, like CPAs and auditors, and what this really means going forward. So I wanted to revisit this in a more casual setting, hence the fireside chat and a mug that sort of matches the mug of my virtual background. But welcome, big day today with this, and also the NBA trade deadline. I'm a big National Basketball Association fan, and what a amazing sports league that I love because they're constantly entertaining. Kevin Durant getting traded to the Phoenix Suns. Anyway, I'm not Adrian Wojnarowski or Shams Charania. This is not NBA Live, but I just want to point out that today is the NBA trade deadline. So for those that are with me today, thank you for being here. And if you have any comments and any suggestions as I put some ideas and conversations into ChatGPT and to Dall-E too for looking at art, feel free. I have a few conversational pieces for ChatGPT just to show, for those that have played around with it. I mean, it is an amazing tool, both tools from OpenAI, both examples of generative artificial intelligence. And at this stage, we're playing around with these tools, right? We're having fun with them. We're asking questions. We're bringing our kids into the, near us as we ask them to ask questions of this generative AI software. But it's also a question of, what's next in this space. And artificial intelligence is just exponentially getting more pervasive in our personal and professional lives. And pervasive not in a negative sense, and just more involved in our personal and professional lives, sometimes unseen. And now, with this is just giving us a thought, wow, this is really interesting. It can almost replicate creativity. And that's when we start to think, okay, it's being creative, is it not? It's generating art. It's generating music, poetry, stories. I mean, is it not, beginning to take part of what makes us human and displaying that? And the answer is no, it is not. It's still fallible, and it's still using a data set to put together patterns based on its programming, but its programming is getting more sophisticated. It's machine learning, self-supervising learning that allows it to do a lot of the amazing conversations, poems, limericks, songs, essays that you see on ChatGPT, on Twitter and other social media. Yeah, well, it is amazing. It does feel like it is almost its own entity and being creative on its own. It's not, but it's getting very good at mimicking things that are very human, things that are what we feel is still part of our abilities to be creative, storytell, be abstract. And that's probably the key thing that's happened with ChatGPT, is that the ability to ask abstract questions, put abstract ideas together, and have something that almost would be produced by, let's just say, a very creative person, a child, an artist. That's pretty amazing. And again, it blurs the line a little bit between machine learning, strong AI, and really what we do and what we bring to the table as people. And so there's just a lot of discussion about what it means for a lot of different fields. So I just want to demonstrate some of the, the elements of this. Doing it live, I already had a few chats going here with it. So, the first, explain quantum computing in simple terms. It gives you ChatGPT on its front page just some examples to say, hey, you want to try this out if you can't think of anything else. And I'll be honest with you, this is really interesting to me because I did take classes in improv at Second City. So a lot of this is just like, okay, what can I think of? And what can I just ask this generative AI software? So, one of the questions I've asked, just because I'm a fan of Star Trek and I thought this is fairly abstract, write a story about apples in the voice of Captain Kirk. I'm a big Star Trek fan. I thought, what, apples, Captain Kirk, how can it do this? And you can see right now, it's building something, and as I read it, we've arrived at a strange and wondrous planet where the trees grow fruit that's beyond anything I've ever seen. The fruit is bright, shiny, red, and green. It's called an apple. As I beam down, I mean, it's building a plot or a story in the voice of Captain Kirk with the topic of apples. It's very much like improv. If you've ever been to Second City and you've been an audience member and you ask the performers on stage, or the performers on stage ask you, give me a name, a place, an occupation, and they build something and you're there and you're wondering, wow, this is so creative. They're building something on the spot. And that's what's happening here. I'll just read the last paragraph. I'll never forget the taste of those apples or the beauty of the planet they came from. It's a true testament to the wonders that they can be found when we venture out into the galaxy and explore the unknown. So it is really fun to play around with this, right? To ask all kinds of abstract questions, because it is almost like having, your own sort of Second City SNL improv game where the programming is doing a pretty good job. Now, it is not infallible, and it is not creative in the sense that we are as humans. It is taking supervised and self-learning machine learning programming from OpenAI and all of the data that it can grab. And this is where issues of intellectual property and copyrights come into play, because where is it sourcing all of this information? What rights does it have to use information about, let's just say, copyrighted characters like Captain Kirk in a story? And then, of course, there are other challenges if you're going to ask it questions on, write an essay about the themes of King Lear, for example, right? This is an essay I had to write in high school. I'm a big Shakespeare fan. I love Shakespeare, and King Lear is one of my favorite Shakespeare plays, right? And so, could it do this? Could it write an essay about the themes of King Lear? And the answer is yes. Now, is it an essay that would I could just take, copy, paste, and go into my class and submit it? Probably not. There's probably more depth that I can add to it, but it's giving me a good start. It's also a lot of these questions about essays and academic papers are avoiding plagiarism software. So plagiarism software is also artificial intelligence. So it's avoiding that. So it's a nature of power and authority. The play explores the idea of those who hold on to power are often the ones who are most vulnerable to losing it. This is actually somewhat similar to what I wrote in high school, if I remember correctly. But King Lear is also, and it's going on, right? It's building about the themes of King Lear. So pretty cool. Again, the questions you can ask ChatGPT are infinite, but the implications are where we start to pause, and that's why so many articles in The Atlantic, The New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Globe and Mail, just a lot of media asking, what does this mean? So I'll bring your attention to a book called The Alignment Problem. And that's still an issue within AI, that even though this is amazing and it's producing some interesting content, it is still not what's called strong AI. It's still not sentient thinking for itself. So it is only as good as the direction you provided and the data it's using to build what it thinks you want. but it's still using predictive models and algorithms. So it is definitely prone to making mistakes because it's not thinking for itself. I mean, there are limitations to this. I mean, here's a question that I asked, an esoteric question, maybe, but maybe a pertinent one. Is ChatGPT good for society? Let's see what it says about that. As an AI language model, I don't have personal opinions or emotions, however, I can provide some objective observations on the impact of AI language models like me on society. So you'll see that a lot. It when you're asking questions of opinion, like for example, what's better? I asked a question about what university is better. I went to the University of Waterloo in Canada, so I asked the question: Is University of Waterloo better than X, Y, or Z university? And it refused to answer that question. In fact, I used my brother's university just to be able to say if it did answer that question in the positive for the University of Waterloo, water, 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 I would have that as some evidence for my brother that I went to the better school. But it wouldn't answer that question. But this question it answered, right? The impact of AI language models like ChatGPT on society depends on how they are used and developed. Very smart, ChatGPT. That is correct. It's about our use and interaction with these that tell us, what it's going to be used for, and also what it really means in terms of the development of artificial intelligence. This does represent a leap in artificial intelligence in terms of being able to somewhat replicate creativity, abstract thought, and we can see that because again, plagiarism software are unable to detect essays that are written by ChatGPT. Writers on Twitter, on TikTok, and others have given it abstract questions and they have been marveled by some of the answers. Now, some writers have given it questions and they said, no, this is garbage. I can write better than this. This feels still, again, like something machine learning is saying, not a person. So there's various opinions, but this has definitely captured the popular consciousness right now of what we can see artificial intelligence being used for. I have one more. I did have one. I thought this was pretty funny. I'm a tennis player, so I asked it, ChatGPT, to write a limerick about Roger Federer's backhand, and here is the limerick. Pretty good. There was once a player named Federer whose backhand was a true showstopper. With a flick of his wrist, it'd go twist and twist, and opponents would simply surrender. That's not bad. If you asked me to come up with any limerick, especially on Federer's backhand, I don't know if I'd be able to produce something as good. Now, again, I'm not in the business of writing limericks. Someone who is a poet would say, you know what, that's great, but that doesn't show, what it is to be human. So it is a question of what the next stages of this are. Again, Microsoft and other search engines are saying, well, can we start to adopt this? Like Microsoft owns Bing and they have Azure as their back end. Google, others are saying, can we start to take this type of generative AI and build it into things such as search options or search engines and making them more sophisticated? Probably that's going to be one of the next steps. So in terms of what this might mean, the question is, how do we use this right now? That was a question raised by ChatGPT itself. Do I use this as a source to write for idea generation, to help me with certain parts of my job? Just be careful about this, because there are things it can definitely be helpful for, other than just having fun with it. But it is not infallible. It will make mistakes based on what it thinks you're asking. And there's going to be a lack of nuance. So there are things you can maybe ask of it that might be helpful for your personal professional life, besides just having fun and asking questions like we're doing here. But this is sort of the next evolution of AI and the way we're going to interact with it. And so the next part of this is Dall-E. I mean, this is amazing. Like things that you could, in terms of not now just written words, but visual art, and asking, also programmed and released by OpenAI, questions of Dall-E to produce art. So I've already had a few questions Let me just say, I have to do a little bit of improv here. A dog playing basketball on an island. A dog playing basketball on an island. We'll see what it builds. I'm just some of this. I'm just using my improv skills and just asking, random questions here. But it will, based on that search query, build build something for me. Build an image. Build an art. Now, as it's rendering, we have questions about this. What is the copyright? What is the intellectual property for what it's building? Because it is not building it from scratch. It is using its data models and its data sources, its big data, to draw in possibilities based on my search or my instructions. But who owns the underlying data? Is it taking in information from? Not bad. There you go. Did it just pull images from Google Image? Is this the work of others combined with the work of others? And again, some challenges here. I have already asked some questions of of Dall-E. So one of them was to a Renaissance painting of generative AI. So this is what it produced here when I asked that. Um, an impressionist painting of the USS Enterprise. I was actually thinking about Star Trek again. I'm a Star Trek fan, so this actually produced a ship. What else did I ask it? A dog chilling in Toronto, right? So this is pretty amazing. How about a graffiti artwork on space and time? Graffiti artwork on space and time. Just give it something really abstract and see what it does with that. So again, many people are going into this and asking, all kinds of questions. It gives you tips on maybe the best way to produce something really amazing, like ask for abstract or implausible images. That's amazing. So this is one thing that I've asked right now. I think that's a pretty abstract query, a graffiti artwork on space and time, and just to show that it is really taking abstract queries and doing something with it. But again, um, what an artist would say, and a lot of artists have talked about this, is not necessarily replicating, our own creativity. It's still drawing from established sources, but in the next level of AI, doing more to generate something that really the software prior to this couldn't do before. So, yeah, as we sit and have this fireside chat, I'll take a drink as my graffiti artwork on space and time. Cool. Pretty cool. I like the one on the left. You can actually save these images and you can use them, I guess. I mean, part of the question is, I have a stock Adobe account. I always make sure that the images I use for any on-demand course that I deliver or any webinar is my copyright, that I've purchased a license for that stock image or piece of art. And in this case, I can download this, but is that my art now? Who owns that? Who owns this intellectual property? Another question. If anybody is on LinkedIn Live and you'd like to ask me to ask Dall-E, even though you could probably do this yourself, but if you want me to do it live or ChatGPT a question, feel free to do so. But the question with ChatGPT and Dall-E is, what does it really mean as we go forward for the development of machine learning and deep learning and the conversational space that we're in? There are concerns about how this looks for things such as images and what we see as deep fakes, where you have someone's image or likeness saying words that aren't theirs, and that's easier to do now. Generative AI is making it easier to do certain things that makes it hard to know, is that a person who's saying something, drawing something, writing something, or is it artificial intelligence? And that's also the ethical challenges here, because from the person who's receiving information, they might be unaware of what the source of that information is. Now, does it matter if the source of the information is good or what the person was looking for? Maybe, maybe not. But that is, again, part of the dilemmas that are created by this. But I would say overall, this is pretty amazing, and it does open the doors to possibilities in the way we use AI in our personal and professional lives. But this is still in sort of in its beginning stages. So the development up with OpenAI and generative AI, ChatGPT, because there have been other generative AI models for things like ChatGPT. So Google had one, Facebook's developed one, but ChatGPT is the most sophisticated. It is the one that has captured their attention because it's doing a pretty good job of just showing creativity and dealing with abstract questions and really surprising us. The other previous versions from other companies haven't done this as well. This is why it's all over the news. And so as we talk about this, I mean, ultimately machine learning is a decision tree. It's taking in information, and even generative AI is a decision tree that learns on the information that we input it. So it's learning as we ask questions. It's getting more data sources, and it's getting better at what it does because it's a feedback mechanism. That's why it does give you feedback questions. If you don't like the response, it wants feedback because it's learning. But it's still not creativity. It's still not taking away what we do as people, but it's just opening up possibilities. So a fireside chat about these. I was excited to, actually demonstrate this when I did this earlier about a week and a half ago. I could not get ChatGPT. ChatGPT right now is like, how busy is ChatGPT? I would say, oh, see, there you go. The error occurred. So was happening before. So I made sure that things were working so I could show this to you live because it is getting a lot of volume, but not surprisingly so. All right. So I'll also be developing a course, an on-demand course on generative AI and ChatGPT and Dall-E and the other companies, Meta, Google. They're all in pursuit of the next level of generative AI, and I'll develop a course on this coming out this year, and I'll let you know both on LinkedIn Live and YouTube. Hey, I'm on YouTube. Don't know if that is getting a lot of viewership because that's the first time, but using Restream, it was quick enough to add YouTube and to have this fireside chat with as many of you as possible. So hopefully you feel fuzzy and warm after this fireside chat, and you got a chance to, see it in action. Obviously, 100% encourage you to play around with it, and just it is pretty darn cool. 100%, it is pretty darn cool. And I've been playing around with Dall-E. I think it's amazing that it can create artwork. Again, some of the challenges with that can be. Oh, and I see some of the chats. Thanks, Candace. Yeah, it's amazing that they can have these types of responses. And I see a lot of comments on here. My Restream comments aren't coming in as quickly as I like, but nice to use to read for kids to go to bed instead of old school storybooks. Yeah, you can ask ChatGPT to create a bedtime story for your child. Now, this is one of the things I like to do myself. I create all kinds of stories when I put my kids to bed. I like to think of it as, my time to be creative. I have a story about Mary the Muffin, who is in a bakery store, who is trying to find her life outside of a bakery store because all the baked goods come to life after midnight. It's a whole thing. It's got multiple chapters. I've developed this story over a few months, and but it's taxing. It's taxing to tell kids stories, and sometimes you could just say, "Hey, ChatGPT, give me a story about a cucumber and a chicken and a wheelbarrow named Barney," and it'll put it all together and give you a story that you can read, right? So interesting places that we can use this technology. Hans, you're being very nice. Maybe I will publish my story. I have several stories that I would like to have published based on my just nighttime bed story, telling it to my children. But in my head, I don't know how much traction they will give. But Candace, you're giving me some encouragement to do it. But yeah, well, thanks everyone for watching. Thanks for those that were watching today, and for this fireside chat. I will be back with more LinkedIn Live and maybe YouTube streams over the next few weeks, and I think this will be one of the recurring conversations, just to just see what what the conversation space is. I mean, just so many conversations around is this good, is this bad, and where is this going to go? And so I'm always excited to talk about this. But thanks everyone for watching. Thanks for all those that added comments and interacted with me through LinkedIn. And hopefully we will see you the next time, maybe next week. Thanks everyone. Have a good Thursday and rest of your week.